Hi, welcome to Social. I'm Christine Gritmon of Christine Gritmon Inc. I do social every Friday at noon where I talk to someone else about social media and digital marketing. And as those of you who follow me on social media know, I spent this week at the Inbound conference in Boston, which is run by HubSpot. And my guest today, Jessie-Lee Nichols, was also there. In fact, again, those of you who follow me on social media know that when I go to conventions or classes or seminars or anything like that, I love live tweeting, partially because it helps me. It's my version of note-taking. It also, solidifies my impression as someone who goes to these things and is learning things. But I also really like sharing what I learn. And I found Jessie-Lee because she was the #1 tweeter using the hashtag at Inbound, and there were tens of thousands of tweets, and you were the master of that. So whenever I find, I was #3 earlier, and at this point, I don't know where I wound up because I ran out of batteries really quickly. Not technology batteries, personal batteries. But Jessie-Lee was tweeting up a storm, and I was like, this is a person whose insights I want. This is someone who I want to meet up with and collaborate with. We didn't get to meet up live. We just met here now because the convention was crazy. But Jessie-Lee, hi, tell us about you.
Me? Well, I don't know. So yes, I am a tweeting fanatic when it comes to Inbound. I think I've been top tweeter for 5 years in a row. So it's
nice.
A legacy at this point. You got to keep up with it.
I hear you.
Yeah, but
and you want a mattress.
I did want a mattress. I'm so excited about that.
A mattress in purple. They have good videos on social.
Oh, it's so exciting. My husband and I have a full-size bed. So this is whoa, what is happening here? This is a bigger mattress, and it's a fancy one too. We were so excited. Yeah, but a little bit about me. I'm a designer at Impact Branding and Design, which is HubSpot's 2017 Partner of the Year. Nice. So we found that out at Inbound, which we are super excited about. That's such a big deal for us. So yeah, I'm a graphic designer. I have a big web background. I've worked at a HubSpot agency for the last 6 years or so. So I am all HubSpot, all Inbound, all the time.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, HubSpot, how would you even describe HubSpot? I mean, they're all about inbound marketing. What inbound marketing is essentially drawing your ideal consumer in with engaging content as opposed to just, reaching out for a hard sell. Yeah. How would you describe the HubSpot company? Inbound is HubSpot's convention. Yes. How would you describe HubSpot as a company?
So HubSpot is a marketing automation software. So they are a software company that has kind of gone out to educate everybody about the inbound movement. They're the ones that really kind of facilitated that. So HubSpot is a really awesome software that's got a tons of different odds and ends. You can do everything from your social media posts and your email marketing to hosting your website on their platform. They have, in the last couple of years, they've launched a CRM, which they have made leaps and bounds in terms of.
That's what I'm using. I'm using their CRM, and it's free, and it's amazing, and it holds my head together, and it's fantastic.
Exactly. They have free products. They have paid products. You can kind of run the gamut with it, but it does everything. And there's no, question as to why they have kind of sparked this movement, because they're into every single facet of it, and they really look at all the different pieces. So as somebody who's been working with them for the last 6 years, it's been really cool to see them go, okay, there's a need for websites. We need to build a platform for that. Okay, now that we have this marketing thing down, we really need to bring the sales guys into that, because that's where it's going. And so they built a CRM. So they are just absolutely amazing when it comes to user feedback and, building the products that you need to do your job right. So
and they love their education platform with the HubSpot Academy. Their inbound marketing certification, which I have, is fantastic. In fact, I built my internship this past summer. I had an intern, and I said that part of the internship would be that my intern had to do the inbound certification course, because I figured that that's a great thing for them to have on the resume, but also great education. You have all of the certifications, is that correct?
I have all 15. Yes, I do.
Wow. I'm working on the content marketing one next, but
that one's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
The contextual marketing one is really cool too, because that gets into really interesting features of what's specific to HubSpot's website platform. So that one's really cool. I enjoyed that one because it's a little techie.
I gotta check all these out. But anyway, let's get to today's topic, which is that we were obviously both at Inbound. People who follow me, I was tweeting up a storm, and I'm going to be putting those tweets into Storyfy threads, which I'm then going to put onto blogs over the course of the next week. Because if you look at my Twitter right now, it's just a mess. But I'm going to kind of put them in threads for, per speaker, especially the Michelle Obama one. Did you wind up in the Twitter moment for Michelle Obama?
No, I don't think so.
I had 2 tweets in the official Twitter moment for Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And one of them I spelled something wrong. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. But people have been jumping on them. I'm like, why are these 2 tweets? These are not my best tweets. Why are they going super viral? And why are trolls all over them? And then I realized it was because I was in the moment. But but I want to talk about, so people who want to see my experience will have that opportunity. They can look at my tweets, they can see my Storyfy threads. But I want to talk about your experience at Inbound, because first of all, because you come from such a different perspective than I do. First of all, I come as an entrepreneur, so I was really hearing there was a lot about how to grow your business, how to scale. And I'm going through a weird transitional time with my business. So it's kind of like how when you're going through a breakup or falling in love, every song on the radio speaks to you. Yeah. I was hearing every song on the radio speak to me in terms of all the speakers talking about, growth mode and all this stuff. But that's not what it was really all about. There were a lot of things going on. And you are someone who, first of all, is with an agency. And second of all, this was your 5th Inbound. Third of all, you're really into HubSpot. So I want to hear what you got out of this conference, what you thought really stood out, what you got the most value out of. And then everyone should follow you at J-L. That's Twitter.
So I learned a long time ago to throw tactics out the window when it comes to Inbound. I've had a lot of colleagues over the years that have gone to Inbound and they're like, yeah, these sessions were okay, but I need the tactical tips that I can, take and go home and implement. I'm like, yeah, you got to let that go. There are some sessions that really do that, and it's great and it's awesome, but not everybody's there for that. So I learned to kind of not necessarily set the bar low, but switch up my expectations so that I am there to be inspired, to take in the experience, and to really draw from 21,400 people in one big room listening to amazing speakers. So big thing that I got out of this year was that, and it really kind of hit home when Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah took the stage. They're HubSpot speakers. They do a huge keynote every year that introduces a lot of product features. And, Brian usually goes a little bit like pie in the sky clouds. Dharmesh shows you the techie stuff. But Brian talked a lot about culture. And I think that was a huge focus this year, is talking about culture and also just about who you are in terms of culture, whether that's company culture, whether that is, much broader in terms of the country and the world and who you are. And it's being okay with yourself, and it's being okay with what you're putting forth, and it's how do you contribute to that. So I felt like all of the speakers over the course of this week were really honing in on, kind of getting over your own sense of imposter syndrome. So it's like, absolutely, you do you. And then you figure out, how you can contribute. So I thought that was pretty powerful. I didn't go away with, the top 10 ways to, make my life more efficient. I would use those anyway. I'm terrible at stuff like that. But it's really about being in that room and being with these people and just taking it all in, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and just kind of, filtering through, okay, how can I apply these little things? And I know that, I have an almost 4-month-old at home. So I know through a lot of those things, there was a lot of women speakers. There were a lot of inclusion and diversity things. I remember there most of the time at a marketing conference that I'm at for work, sitting there damn, I really want to instill so much of these ideals and so many of these quotes, that's the kind of woman I want to raise. And it was just I love that. When you go to a marketing conference and you feel that afterwards, that's a pretty powerful thing.
It really is. It was fantastic. And I noticed that too. It was very good, varied lineup of speakers. They especially had a lot of women of color speaking about that experience. Really just, it was fantastic. And I love that there was such a mix of speakers, and yet that wasn't a thing. It wasn't, we're bringing different people in and different voices in just to be diverse. It was, we're bringing different people in and different voices in because these voices matter, and it's all a part of the experience.
And it sparks a conversation.
It was fantastic. And I love that you pointed out that everyone's theme was really kind of about culture, because before going to this year's conference, I looked at the speaker lineup and I was like, it kind of feels like they're going more for the big celebrity names and for actual relevance to marketing, which was still a little true in some cases. But the fact is, bringing it back home to culture, to knowing who you are, and to connection. You have to know who you are as a brand and as a person and all of that in order to connect with others, which is what inbound marketing is all about. That was such a thing. Even Michelle Obama spoke to that. Her whole thing was know who you are, own your genuine voice, and, you know, just prove it with the work. And
the other person that really honed in on that, I was so surprised. I know you weren't around too much yesterday,
no.
but I stayed to see John Cena, and I was like, what the hell is John Cena doing here?
I was wondering that too. I'm like, and then more people filled me in on like what he's been doing. I didn't realize what a personal brand he has become.
Dude,
but I was like,
on stage and spoke paragraphs of Mandarin because he's like, I know my audience. And I was like, you're John Cena in a suit and you're standing up there talking Chinese at me. I was like, yes, sir, I believe you.
That's amazing. So what did he say? What did he say that really got through to you?
He talked a lot about understanding his business. So I'm not a big wrestling fan by any means. You know, I'm not much more of a wrestling fan outside of I watch Glow on Netflix. So that's as much as I know about it, right? So, but I get it. You know, it's an entertainment business and it's like a fake thing that looks real and stuff like that. But he really owned that. He was like, I understand my business. I understand my audience. And this is how that I've, you know, contributed my authentic self and contributed what I put in terms of time at work to figure that out and to be that. And it's like, he understands branding from such an innate level and how he contributes to that. I was just like, so impressed. I was like, wow, like, you know, the suit helps. Yes, but you really get this.
That is awesome. And that's how he's been able to transfer industries, because now he's like on the Today Show and he's running charities. Like,
oh yeah. But it's still the same guy. He's not like a change guy. Like, it's still John Cena. So it was really cool. It was really cool.
So cool. Now, did you, I had noticed just from your tweets that you seem to be mostly sticking to like the keynotes and the spotlights, the big addresses, rather than the little tactical breakout sessions.
Yes, because like I said, a while ago I kind of let go of that, and I went to a couple of breakout sessions early on, and I was a little disappointed because somebody stood up in front of me and explained for 10 minutes line by line what a buyer persona was and how you fill out a buyer persona worksheet. And I was like, guys,
like I've been through the HubSpot training, thanks.
Yeah, it's 2017. The inbound movement is not brand spanking new anymore. We're not trying to convince anybody that inbound works. It works because that's what we're doing. We're consuming content constantly.
Here.
Exactly. So I don't need you to stand up in front of me and do that. Like, we're past that. Like, as a society, an inbound society, we're past that. So I got a little annoyed with that and kind of lost some faith. But I do know that from years past, I going to the spotlights always catch me off guard. I'm always like, I either don't know who the person is, or I'm like, you know, who is this and why would they be interesting? It's just like John Cena was like that. Last year, Michael Strahan was like that. He was my favorite speaker the entire time last year. He was amazing. But those types of interviews and the way that the questions kind of probe them, and it's really unexpected. And I get so much more out of that than I do with, here's the top 5 things you can go back home and implement right now to, you know, increase your productivity. I go to inbound to be inspired and to kind of reset my thinking. It's a little bit when you get too much in your head and you've been in the daily grind and you're checking tasks off the list, inbound is a little mental vacay to like let you reset and to be like, hey, you're a creative and you're a creative professional, and you need to move forward with these kinds of, you know, ideals and inspirations. So that's really what I get out of inbound.
I love that. And there's someone, I can't believe I forgot his name, but there was a guy who specifically talked about how to bring creative ideas to the table.
Oh, was that
God, what was his name? Let me look back.
Rosenblum.
No, this was the guy who works at Wharton. I'm looking it up right now. Another tab.
I did go to that.
He was fantastic because he talked about how by the very nature of a creative idea that hasn't been done before, like you have to approach the right people with it in order to get it off the ground, because most people, especially managers, are risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Grant.
That's it. He was fabulous.
He was great. I didn't know him before, and it said on the Inbound app that they get a lot of requests for him to speak. So I was like, all right, I got to check out this guy. And I liked that. And one thing that he said that really stuck with me, and I've actually provided this function for some people, which is that when you're seeking support for your idea and to move your new idea forward, you don't want to seek the yes person. You don't want to seek someone who's just going to be your cheerleader. You want to seek someone out who's going to kind of pick your idea apart and like give it a dose of realism, so that you have to have a strong strategy, because then once that naysayer like is convinced and backs you,
mm-hmm.
they will be your strongest propulsion forward. They will back you up.
Yeah, and I think that was reiterated in yesterday's keynote with the co-founder of Pixar.
Yeah.
To be honest, I found him incredibly boring. But what he did say was something along the same lines, where when Pixar and Disney really came together, they used kind of like a one get out of jail free card, I think is the way he put it, to, one time on a project, they get to go into the other person's office and like present the whole thing and get like totally unabashed, unbiased feedback. And those meetings help the most because they don't understand and they have to ask questions. You have to defend it. And, it either works or it doesn't. And that's kind of like their truth moment. So I love it when talks really compound on each other like that. It just really drives home.
There were a lot of really common themes, and that was great. So tell me more about some of the stuff that has really kind of stuck in your head.
Oh gosh. Well, Michelle Obama was fabulous. I loved all of that. But
I was already expecting to love that, but it was also more relevant than I thought it would be, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of things were taken in and out of context with that speech. It was interesting to see how the media around us that wasn't at the conference really took that in. I got home and my husband started asking me about it, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, you need to watch the whole thing, and we can discuss this. So to anybody out there that, is watching the news and didn't watch her speech, hopefully, I think Inbound puts those keynotes out. Watch the whole thing. It really was a great interview.
I've hopped on a couple of comment threads about that. I'm like, well, there was a whole context to it, so chill.
Exactly. I'm like, it doesn't matter which side, just watch the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked, I forget her name. We were just discussing it. Tuesday morning.
Karen Gilardi from Refinery 29?
Yes, she was great. And she really talked about, I think it was the conditions for creativity. Yes. I loved that talk.
Mm-hmm.
That she was just spot on about, setting yourself up and really like, what do you need to do this? And, whether that's, the positive feedback, negative feedback, the environment, it was just everything. And can I tell you, her pantsuit was just fabulous. Like I can't do the bell sleeves, but I was like, I want a red wide leg pantsuit to trot around on stage in, like just somewhere. That would be nice.
Red is like my whole color, so I was like, yeah, she's wearing red. Another thing that she was really great at is to the point of being your authentic self and setting up the conditions for creativity. A lot of our imposter syndrome that so many people suffer, especially women and especially young women and especially anyone in a creative field who's trying to do something new, is that, you really have to set yourself up for success, because the thing is, it's very easy to get down on yourself with a perceived failure, but then you look at it, it's like, did you set yourself up to succeed though? Because if you didn't, then it's not you. It's that you didn't create the conditions for creativity. You didn't create the conditions for success. You still can.
And I think the other thing that she said that really affected me, like on a super personal level, was she has a design background. That's what I do. That's who I am as well. And she is, the CEO of her own company. So she was talking about going into those boardrooms and, you know, having to ask questions that she felt were really, really basic about business, because that's not her background. And I'm like, wow, I can't tell you how many times I felt that. You know, I remember my, the last agency I worked for, you know, in the first couple of weeks, somebody said B2B to me. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. I need to Google it. Yeah. Like, I remember specifically that, you know, instance in my mind being like, I need to look that up, and not asking the question. And I'm like, I know exactly what she's saying. And it just, that part really, really hit me, because as a designer, yes, you can get very, very caught up in, no, I'm the creative and I'm here to make things pretty. I'm here to, you know, create art. And you really forget that sometimes when you're working in a business, when you're working with clients, like, it's a business first. Like, your objectives in terms of the art and the aesthetics, that comes secondary to everything else. You're trying to help your client succeed in their business, and that's your business. It all comes down to revenue, and it comes down to money, and you can't lose sight of that. And I think that that's really hard for designers to understand and admit a lot of the time. So to have somebody with her success up on stage saying, yes, you can do both, that was really inspiring for me.
It really was. And she was, you know, again, to the point of recurring themes, she was far from the only keynote speaker to talk about having the guts to ask questions, having the guts to say, I don't know that. And honestly, sometimes it is a test. There was a client that I was going to start work with, and they said, wait, we have someone who wants to talk to you about it first. And they brought in like a friend who felt they were knowledgeable in marketing, wanted to make sure basically that they were going to get their money's worth out of me.
Don't you love that?
And he starts throwing terms around. And it was clearly like partially like a test to see if I knew things. It was very like jargon loaded. And, you know, some of them I was able to, you know, catch that ball and go with it. And I still translated into English. I was like, well, in English, here's blah, blah, blah. I didn't say in English. There's one term that I totally didn't know. And you know, I said, so I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking about. Because you know what? If I had just said, yeah, you know, he would have known I was bullshitting. You know, you can't. Yep. So it's like, yeah, on the one hand, this is a test to see if I know my stuff. On the other hand, I'm confident enough that I know my stuff to admit the thing that I don't know, because this particular thing is not that important. Or if it is important, it's worth learning about. It's worth asking the question, find out what it is you don't know. And this turned out to be, I can't even remember what it was, because it's something that isn't actually relevant to the way that I work. But, you know, you have to own that, because if you pretend you know something, people expect you to know that.
Yep. Yep. And that goes all back into that, like, self-worth and self-acceptance and, you know, defining your culture and things like that. It's just,
you pretend to be something you're not, people will figure that out, and it will be a mess. So don't.
Yes. Yeah. I think I really loved Brene Brown too. I saw her a couple of years ago when she talked in Inbound. Just everything that she says, just yes.
So I will say, I haven't read her book yet, so I got a signed copy in Inbound. Yay!
Me too.
Yeah, but that's because we were tweeting, so we won them. But I had seen people who have been reading the book, and I was a little disappointed, because a lot of what she said, I'm like, I just saw this in not even reading your book, but in a picture someone else posted of a page of your book. I was like, that's a page of your book. But then when she started talking into some of the personal stories behind it, like meeting Maya Angelou, taking it a little deeper and talking about those personal stories behind things, then I was like, okay, so this is getting beyond the book. But for whole first like half or so of the talk, I was like, this is the packaged talk. But it was still cool, though. I liked it when she got more personal with it, more into the personal stories. And I am looking forward to reading the book now, because I think it's going to be highly relevant. I feel like her theme of belonging was another huge, that connected so well to the culture theme that we were talking about, that everyone kind of hit upon. You can't feel connection if you don't know who you are. You can't feel a sense of belonging if you don't first know who you are. And one thing that she said that was especially important was the people who have the greatest sense of belonging are not afraid to be alone. And that's huge. You know, belonging comes from you. You belong in your life. You belong in your body. You belong in you. And you are your culture. And then you'll find your place, you know, as opposed to finding the place and then
it's so nice that, you know, what she's saying isn't groundbreaking, but the fact that she's saying it as like a reminder and as, you know, of somebody that has this, somebody who we kind of perceive to have this valuable opinion is standing up on stage and telling you, it's like that, it's that validator of like, yes, go forth with this.
It means a lot.
And she's a great storyteller. I just love to hear her speak. She's so passionate about what she talks about. Like even the package version, she exudes everything she's saying, and it makes you hang on her every word. She's on her.
She has that self-knowledge. She has that belonging. It makes everything she says so much more powerful.
Exactly. And then I think the last one that I really, really loved was Rand Fishkin from Moz. He gave a presentation yesterday morning that was, I mean, of course, he was going to stand up there and talk about Google search results and everything. I mean, who doesn't know Moz and what they do? But the fact that he had like a direct connection and correlation to the culture end of it. And it was just like, did they tell these guys to do that before they like, you know,
I think they might have. I think they said, here are the common themes that we want you to riff on.
I don't know, but he definitely, I was impressed with the way he took two things that had nothing to do with each other. And he just was like, this is the way we're going to do this today. And he stood up there with his super cool haircut. I am like, my haircut's cool, but not nearly as cool as his.
And it's super cool. Nevertheless, she persisted. T-shirt.
Yes. So I was just all impressed by the all around effort. I'm like, I need to step up my game in a serious way. But yeah, I thought his presentation was great. It was funny. It was energetic, and you know, I got some good stuff about Google search results, but it was all about, you know, the culture around you, and you know, the kind of just like world culture we have right now in terms of like what's happening around you, like in the news, and how people are like presenting things to society, and how you need to tailor your marketing to react to that. So it was a stretch, but it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. So I think at one point I tweeted out all the slides. So I'll have to find that tweet and like pin it to the top or something like that. So yeah. But it was a good talk. It's definitely good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. And is there anything in particular that you especially feel like you're going to bring back into your life or your work?
I think, you know, I'm definitely going to read Brene Brown's book now that I have a copy. But I think that that's a big thing for me from a personal level, is just being, you know, because I work in an agency with, you know, 30 some super talented people. They're incredible. And I think just kind of understanding and owning my sense of belonging is going to be huge for me to figure out. Because I started with Impact not too long ago. My old company actually merged with them. So it's a melding pot right now. And I think understanding this is where I contribute, and this is where I'm a badass, and this is why I belong, that's going to be a big thing for me. So
finding yourself before you find your place.
Exactly. So I was just, you know, it kicked off a really great conference, that whole talk, and I have the book, which is just cool. I'm
looking forward to that. I'm still working through some Roxane Gay stuff in my bath time reading, and having met her was really exciting for me. I love Roxane Gay. But after that, I'm moving on to Brene Brown. This whole October for me, as I said, I'm like in a weird transition-y place in my business and try to figure out what direction I want to grow in. And I'm taking October to sort of rebalance my life and, you know, figure myself out and self-love and all that stuff. And this was perfect timing, because the fact that I went to a business conference that emphasized the need to like figure yourself out.
You gotta slow down to speed up is what you gotta do.
Yeah, I'm like, this is perfect. Again, it's like that moment when every song on the radio is speaking to you, is how I felt at that conference. And it's interesting to hear that you, coming from a different context, felt the same themes that I did. So it's nice to know it's not just me. This was the theme of the conference, and
We're not crazy. We're all crazy.
And it was great, and definitely got to buy my Inbound 18 ticket like ASAP.
Yeah, they didn't give them to us on Twitter this year. Gosh darn it.
Well, thank you so very much for joining me, Jessie-Lee. And I am going to hopefully work with you on something in the future, which will be great.
That would be awesome.
Tell people about your podcast so people can.
Oh yes. So a couple of colleagues of mine at Impact, Liz Murphy, who is Impact's content strategist, and Marcella Jalbert. She is also a designer at Impact, but she comes from a totally different background and end than I do. We chat weekly on a podcast called Creators Block. Just like writer's block, just like designer's block, but we're all creators, so creators block. So we talk about agency life and getting the big ideas done. So, you know, doing the work associated with them. So it's a lot of banter, a lot of witty banter, if I say so myself. But we talk a lot in terms of things like the imposter syndrome, stuff like what do you do when you get stuck someplace? You know, what comes first, content or design? You know, we really go back and forth with a lot of themes like that. And if anybody's like thinking about working in an agency or what that's like, or they, you know, are a client of an agency, we do kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on, you know, here's the good and the bad and the ugly associated with that. So it's a lot of fun. We talk from 45 minutes to an hour. I think every Tuesday it comes out. So yeah,
nice.
It's pretty awesome.
Good stuff. Everyone check it out. And sorry, it's called Creators Block.
Creators Block. Yep.
Awesome. And then just a reminder for everybody out there, we're talking about knowing yourself, knowing your culture, all of that. A reminder that I have my first e-course coming out, Strike Up the Brand, where I teach you how to toot your own horn. It's about figuring out, I'm going to lead over the course of 4 weeks. I'm going to lead people through some steps towards figuring out their personal brand, figuring out who they are, what their point of difference is, how to have who they truly are inform how they present themselves and their work. And it's 4 weeks of videos and a private Facebook group and weekly office hours on Facebook Live with me, and everyone should go check it out, and I'll have the link to that below. Awesome. So again, this has been Christine Gritmon. I do this every Friday at 12 noon. Thanks. Bye.